it doesn't automatically go up, but it should. Okay, and we're live. So welcome everyone to the High Roller PonyCon 2018 Attendee Feedback Survey stream. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is and I can hear myself. And let me stop that from happening because that's very distracting. Okay, that's better. Sorry about that. Okay, so my name is Charlie. I was the vice chair of High Roller PonyCon this year. We also, unlike at opening ceremonies, we have the con chair with us this time. Say hi, Jeff.
Good afternoon or good evening, depending. Screw up. Yeah, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on what time zone you are. This is the first HRPC attendee feedback live stream. We're just going to be keeping it as succinct as possible, but we're just going to go through a couple comments and probably a couple of obvious things that we do want to address, but at the same time, we want to make them known so that you know what we're working on and what we're going to improve for 2019.
Indeed. To anyone that's watching this live on the YouTube chat, do please comment and participate in the YouTube chat that's on the stream. We'll be keeping an eye on there. And so if you have any questions as this comes up, feel free to put them there. We've got Screw Loose, our vendor hall lead, is going to be monitoring the chat. That's the goofball giving the thumbs up at the bottom of the stream. Yep, that's him. Hi, Screw. And so we've got a couple other folks on the call. Why don't we go through and just kind of let you know who's watching. So as I see them left to right, first we've got Aaron, our security chief.
Howdy, howdy.
Yep. And then we've got Drew, our guest relations director.
Yo.
Very talkative folks they are. Of course, you know Jeff. We've got Ludi, who is our programming director.
Hi, hi.
And then Screw Loose, our vendor hall department head.
Who is plagued with some large
What? What is that?
That is my microphone, good sir.
Oh, good. That's and yes, and don't ow my ears. And then we've got Timmy, who is our arts department head as well. And then hello. And then I think we have a few other people just watching, so they may be popping into the chat as well. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. So in case you are not 100% clear, dear viewer, on what this is, we've been running a survey for the past couple weeks asking attendees to give us feedback on what you thought of High Roller PonyCon 2018. Hopefully everyone that filled it out was actually there. But you know, judging by some of the responses that we've looked over, that definitely seems to be the case. I believe we got 95 responses, which percentage-wise is almost a quarter of our turnout. So that's fantastic. Generally speaking, and so the point of this stream is that we're going to be going over the responses, kind of like Jeff said. We're not going to go into every single response in detail, just because otherwise this would be like way longer than it needs to be. But we're going to kind of respond to some of the themes and just some of the common comments and responses from some folk, and also some of the things that that we noticed that we feel are interesting enough to dig into a little bit and kind of talk about. So first off, I'm going to do a quick screen share here. This is always nice to see, if everybody can see my screen. So the general opinion of High Roller PonyCon 2018 out of our 95 responders, only a few people, gave it a lower score, which for a first-year con I think is pretty darn good. 58.9% of responders gave it a 5 out of 5, 30.5 gave it a 4 out of 5, and then I've got 10 people that are just grumpy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure they have legitimate complaints, which we'll probably get into. Hopefully they told us why later in the survey. They gave us those scores, but we'll dig into that a little bit here. Okay, so let's see. Generally speaking, also people were happy with the value of the badge that they got. 58% gave it a 5, 28% gave it a 4, and then the remaining 11 or so percent gave it a 3 or lower. People were generally happy with the panels and variety. Panel quality was also pretty high. And then here's where we get into some of the detailed responses. So first of all, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm just going to address this right off the bat. By far, one of the questions that we asked is, if you could change one thing about High Roller PonyCon for next year, what would it be? By far, like leaps and bounds, the most popular thing that people said is that they wanted it to be a 3-day con. And that is our plan going forward for 2019. Correct, Jeff?
That would be correct. We're actually in talks with the new sales representative because our old sales manager, Marie, has actually got a promotion. She's now a division director at another hotel. So congrats to her if she's watching. But our new sales manager, we're going to be having discussions shortly in terms of contract negotiations. But they do want to welcome us back. The management, the security, and Joy, who is our convention services manager, expressed nothing but positivity with the interaction between our guests, our attendees, and everyone. So they definitely want to welcome us back, and we will be addressing that very shortly, I would assume.
Yeah. Just one thing I want to respond to in the comments. Bel Mansar says that they're surprised that only a quarter responded. I can tell you for Winnie Steady PonyCon and Ponyville Cider Fest, I do these same surveys, and we also only get. I was surprised at the percentage that we got for High Roller, because for Winnie City and Cider Fest, that's about 900 to 1,000, give or take 1,100 people cons. We only get about 100 responders for those, which I like consistently. So the fact that I'm used to getting like around a 10% response, getting a 25% response for High Roller just shows me how much people cared about this con and wanted us to know what they thought of it. So I consider 25% to be like way beyond expectations, just based on my experience. So
that's Vegas for you. I mean, we've been doing that for the past year.
Okay.
Defying expectations. Sure. Oh, come on.
Defying expectations. Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. So anyways, back to the responses. So responding to the question, what was your most favorite thing about this year? A lot of people really liked the gamer panel, which is great for the gamer panel folk.
Concert at the pool. That was definitely a good. For those of you who don't know, Charlie actually was just hammering on our poor convention service manager, like, come on, give us a cheaper price, because they wanted, let's just say, an exorbitant amount of money to plug an HDMI cable into a freaking TV. But Charlie got it, and he made it happen. So definitely props to Charlie.
Well, I mean, props to everyone that made it happen, but thank you. Props to Jeff for paying for it. Dealing with labor rates, especially with venues like that, they have a labor minimum typically. So even if the person was only going to be on site for 15 minutes to climb up on a ladder and plug in a table, they had a 4-hour labor minimum that they were supposed to charge us. And so like it was just getting around some of the bureaucratic stuff. But I'm glad that worked out, and we'll definitely look into doing that in the future because people seem to be.
We're going to contract it for sure. We're not going to just leave it till last minute, because that was definitely a thing that I would.
That came together on between Friday afternoon and Saturday and Saturday afternoon. Like it's just something that just popped into my head that we got worked out. So
it worked out really well because a lot of people loved it, and we were sitting outside on the patio when the concert was going on. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And the only concern I really had about it was I didn't want it to really pull people out of the concert. Like I didn't want them to be say oh, I don't need to be in here watching, I'll just be in the pool instead. It didn't really seem like that was the case. I think everybody that was in the pool area was going to be there anyways. And so I think the one thing we need to figure out next year is just how to incentivize people to go to the concerts more. Because I think what probably happened last year. What's that?
Money gun.
Money gun.
Just shoot money into the crowd randomly.
I think what happened this year is that it was a lot of people's first times in Vegas, and so I think they just opted to go sightseeing on Friday and Saturday night, and see the city, as opposed to seeing the concert. Which I think if a lot of people went to the concert, you may have noticed. Well, I noticed that that the turnout there was kind of low, and I think that's just simply because people wanted to go down to the Strip instead. And so we just need to figure out a way to incentivize people to stay at the concert and maybe have organized trips down to the Strip that don't interfere with major programming like that. I don't know. We'll figure that. We'll see about figuring that out. But those of you who didn't go to the concert, you missed out on some great sets. I popped in there several times to take pictures, and a lot of really cool stuff happening. That VR thing was awesome.
That is definitely going to happen again. We're going to contract it for sure. We're not going to just leave it till last minute, because that was definitely
Bumblebun makes the comment that being a 2-day con didn't help with the concerts.
Fair. That's fair. That's totally fair. Okay. All right. Some other things that people thought were their most favorite thing. People really liked our guest of honor lineup. As you know, for being a lot of the comments that I think we're probably going to say on this stream are going to be, are going to have for a first-year con tagged along onto it, and so that's just going to be kind of implied on some of these things. But yeah, for a first-year con, I think our guest of honor lineup was pretty good.
Yeah.
We did. Let's see. Yeah. A lot of people like the hotel. The physical venue. People specifically call out just like the actual building and the layout and everything seemed to be on a lot of people's plus lists. So another thing that I'll kind of call out here is that I definitely noticed that there were a lot of people that called out that they really liked like the number of like 18 plus panels and how, for lack of a better way of putting it, adult the con was, I guess you could say. Some people reference like the selections available in the vendor hall. Some people mentioned the some of the panels and just like the vibe of it being in Vegas and stuff like that. And then you have another group of people that said that they wish that there was more of a focus on kids and wishing that they had more kids events and kid-centric programming and stuff like that. It's my opinion. Like I think that the balance that we struck for being in Sin City, I think we did a pretty good job for not having a dedicated kids department. But I would say that probably going forward, having some sort of a dedicated, kids programming department would probably be something we'll try to do in the future. We sort of tried to do it this year. You may have noticed if you looked at the staff list in the back of the con book. For those of you who are lucky enough to get one, I'll touch on that also in a bit. That our staff was pretty small. I don't want to call it a skeleton crew, but we definitely could have used more bodies in pretty much every area. Some areas we had to do away with completely just because we didn't have staff, like tabletop gaming and video gaming. Something else that a fair amount of people also brought up. I think if we had had more staff, we would have been able to do some of these things that people were saying that they wish that we had gaming and kids department being one of those, a few of those things. But having the extra effort of making that happen next year, I think would be definitely worth looking into. Just because, even with the nature of it being in Vegas and just all of that goes along with it, the show and the fandom wouldn't exist were it not for the core kid audience. And so I think that providing content for any kids that want to come or any parents that want to bring their kids and whatever, I think is something that we sort of owe. Just the younger side of the fandom.
Just on that note, since I did a lot of the panels, the majority of our panel applications, which made it really hard to do family-friendly programming,
right.
The majority of them were 18 plus. So, having actual family-friendly stuff was kind of slim pickings.
Yeah, typically, probably with what we're talking about, the family-friendly, like kid program, it wouldn't be submitted by attendees. It would probably be come up with. We'd have a kids programming staff that would come up with events and crafts and arts and crafts stuff and like that. But yeah, that's true. The applications didn't help with the situation. But yeah, so just one of those things. Definitely a lot of people saying that they enjoyed the balance that we had this year, it seems like. So that's all great. Here's what's that?
I was gonna say, just looking through the least favorite things, which is directly below what people like the most. As far as what people like the least, it was either small little problems that we knew about, like notably the presidential suite party getting shut down, the fact that it's only a 2-day con. The panels were a little slim pickings, but again, I think you addressed that when you said most people were probably out on the strip, just exploring Vegas, doing the typical Vegas thing. And then Reg was had a little bit of slowdown, but that's something we did our best to plan for anyway. But I mean, registration is usually a bit of a scramble at the beginning, but after it gets going on Thursdays, especially for opening day at an opening con, it'll usually smooth out. So that's definitely something we can address for next year. We'll make registration a little smoother for check-in as far as sponsor badges. That was noted a couple times. People had a little bit of frustration with the VIP lines versus the standard line. And food. Apparently people like the idea of maybe we could have a station set up where people can purchase snack items or food items, like let's say hot dogs, hamburgers, that sort of thing.
Like quick service stuff like that, yeah. Yeah, just because there really wasn't anything in walking distance, I think that's something that would be worth looking into, just for people that are hungry but don't want to go spend $20 at the hotel restaurant. I think that that's something that would be definitely worth considering. A couple other comments that I'm noticing about people, things that people were not fond of from this year. A couple people mentioned something about not having a costume contest or a cosplay contest. That I think sort of went along with our expectations for the attendance this year. I mean, if you kind of remember, just from what I saw walking around, I saw some really cool cosplays, but I don't think I saw enough of them for us to have been able to justify having a cosplay contest. And I think that just going hand in hand with the turnout and again the fact that we were only a 2-day con, we only had so much time to work with. Like carving out an hour and a half, maybe 2-hour block out of the main hall would have been difficult with what we were trying to cram into 2 days.
Another big issue with the whole cosplay contest was just the idea of security, being that since we are a first-year con basically first time at their property, obviously security and registration desk were more apprehensive to people dressing up in costumes and masks, especially given the situation in Vegas that happened a year ago. But I think with the fact that we're going to be coming back for the second year to the same property, we could probably work a little bit closer with security and staff so that we can have designated cosplay areas, like maybe the convention center, so that people can actually wear their masks. It's just everybody would be on the same page, so we don't have security freaking out per se.
Yeah.
I have a comment saying potentially working with Uber Eats.
I love Uber Eats. Oh my god!
Could we work with Uber Eats or some other delivery service for food? They were used quite often that weekend.
I used I used Postmates multiple times throughout the weekend and didn't have an issue. It was great.
Okay, yeah. So just maybe some people didn't think about that as being an option, but even still, like sometimes when you're hungry, you just want to I think having that quick service thing would probably be a good idea. Just for people that want to grab something quick between panels, and
possibly giving them giving those kind of services a heads up. Hey, we're gonna have a convention here. It would be helpful if you if you can keep an eye out for us or something like that. Along those lines.
Yeah. Somebody said that they weren't a fan of the fact that closing ceremonies happened before the concert, so there wasn't a lot of people. I personally don't feel that was a contributing factor to the turnout at the concert. I think it was just a matter of, because especially at closing ceremonies, we made it very clear, like, we're doing this now because we can't exactly do it at midnight. That wouldn't make any sense. But I think the turnout at the concerts, like I say, were the fact that it being a 2-day con and people wanted to go down to Vegas. So I don't think that was a contributing factor, but 3-day con next year won't be an issue.
Yeah, and we could probably go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, honestly, for the turnout we had as total attendees, I know the turnout at the concert seemed kind of small, but it seemed percentage-wise pretty much what I've seen at most other conventions that don't put such a huge heavy focus on music.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
Okay, but we can get that. That's a good transition to we can jump to the next question, which is, if you were to change one thing for next year, what would it be? And again, bringing up the point, everybody wanted it to be a 3-day, because I could just scroll through here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, within the first 15 responses, 8 of them are make it a 3-day con. And then some people suggested maybe a different venue. Logistically, I did that once, and I don't want to ever have to do that again.
Yeah, and I think our venue is perfect, honestly. I mean, it's with its proximity to the monorail, with just the uniqueness of the venue, with having that pool there in the middle and all that. I mean,
we have space to grow in it too. The capacity for the venue is 1,500, close to 2,000. I mean, if we start approaching those numbers, that would be a wonderful problem to have, but I don't see it within the next year or so. But yeah, like you said, the proximity is great, and it's also close to the Vegas Strip without actually being on the Las Vegas Strip, so that you have a place to get away from the chaos and the partying and just kind of relax and unwind.
Yeah.
Nicole Oliver, we tried.
She really wanted to come, actually.
We can say
I
that.
tried so hard.
Yes, Nicole wanted to come to HRPC, but she was on the Sea Bronies cruise. But that's not a big deal. We have an option for next year or this year, whatever that means.
A couple other things I want to mention about the least favorite thing. So somebody who I could probably look at their full response. I'm just looking at the summary of responses, so I don't have anything to match this up with right now. I could go look at that and maybe we'll respond to this person in particular. But somebody put in, who apparently was received a press badge. They said press preparations were non-existent. We were told the week of con that our group got in for press via an automated receipt with no message attached. At the con, we were told interviews were scheduled by contacting the guests of honors at the con, which was practically impossible to do due to their busy schedule and the fact that they wanted to rightfully go explore Vegas. Not mad at the guests, but there needs to be an interview schedule made prior to a con. I felt press groups got shafted. We sadly got no interviews done despite knowing the GOHs personally. Yeah, when it comes to when it comes to that, I definitely, I would say the handling of communication on several things, press, with press applicants, being one of them, is definitely one of the things I think we can admit that we dropped the ball on this year. It's easy to say, we'll do better next year, but I really want to make it clear that I mean it when I say that. And on all these, this and any other communication issues that some people may have had with the con, there's just there were a lot of opportunities for improvement there, where just things needed to be sent out earlier, followed up on properly, and things like that. And so this is just one of them. And next year for sure, communication with press applicants will definitely be handled better.
And personally, I don't want you to have to take all the heat for that particular circumstance, because a lot of the problems that we had communication-wise were actually stemming back from the initial setup of the convention, kind of before you had jumped on. So that was that was mostly my fault, because obviously, hey, I'm going to run a con. I've never been to a con before. I wonder how that's going to work out. That's what I think. But
yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't need to be about, I'm not looking to point fingers at myself or anyone else. It's just a matter of, just as a team, it was a failure, and things, one of the things that we'll definitely look to do better on next time.
But yeah, for sure, we're going to do a lot better for 2019, and we're going to have, the proper system set up. So it's just copy paste.
Yeah. And then another comment that I just want to reference. Now, obviously, this isn't something towards the con that they were complaining about, but it's something that I want to address nonetheless, just because it's something that I noticed as well. So this particular responder says that they did not like the fact that the MLP guys, referring to the people who frequent the MLP sub channel on, or whatever it is, on 4chan. I don't go on the site, probably the wrong word, don't care. Trying to take over everything and make the con some kind of meme. The video game panel, for example, was just stupid. Again, you run into these situations where some people say that something was their favorite thing in the whole world, and then you get other people to say like it was just the dumbest thing. Conventions can't please everyone, and so it's just a matter of finding that middle ground that works out the best for the most amount of people. But continuing on here, they also ran around the con like the con was theirs and even overshadowed other more chill and friendly ponying groups that were in attendance. If this is going to be an MLP con, they aren't exactly well liked by the targeted audience in the fandom. Obviously, this is one responder's opinion, but in general, what I would like to say is that I would say that I understand where this person's coming from. There was not a lot of behavior that I took issue with at the con, but there were definitely some things that I saw, like, well, I won't call anything out specifically, but generally speaking, I think that there are some people who are at the con who could have behaved a little more maturely, and I'll be speaking to whoever we have on our security team for next year, and if we see, I would say that if we see people behaving in such a way that the convention staff will probably deal with that a little more directly than we did this year. This year we kind of let people do what they wanted as long as they weren't breaking the law. And I think that some people went too far with some certain things. Just being stupid, just being silly for no good reason. And I would like that to not happen again. I'm nothing personal directed towards the MLP group. I know some of them. I think some of them are just fine, upstanding human beings. But I don't want this to become an MLP con, referring to again the 4chan board or whatever it is. I just want everybody to have a good time and for people not to be immature children is what I'm trying to say.
If you want to be an immature child, though, in all seriousness, just go down to the Strip, because the Renaissance.
Seriously.
No, I'm serious, because they could put up with y'all, but the Renaissance is more of a classy, relaxed atmosphere. So I'm going to say this right now, but we definitely pushed the boundary for what they were used to, because we were actually their first, I want to say, fandom, anime, whatever type convention of that caliber. They are not used to. They had no problem. It opened their eyes to a lot of different things, and they were very happy to have us. But yes, as you said, there were a few circumstances with people behaving immaturely, writing things that shouldn't be written on whatever the heck that roll of paper was doing, and randomly in the hall. I don't know what that was, but there were a few things we actually had to have security remove or black out. It's like, don't do that stuff in public spaces, because again, we are still at a hotel that has other guests coming in and out. We didn't buy the entire hotel. We bought just only a small portion of it. So there are other people there.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So moving on. To I think that's everything out of the least favorite things. Is there anything that anybody else on the call wanted to pull out of the least favorite things before we move on? Okay.
Indy, did you want to point out the thing that you had sent to me, or was that not?
Yeah, we can cover that later.
I have one thing.
Okay.
People, it's Vegas. It's hot.
Yeah, there were some people that put their least favorite thing was the heat. You know what? If your least favorite thing about the con is something that we had absolutely no means of controlling, I'm actually okay with that.
It's hot. It's Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, which is also probably why we won't consider having the con like later in the summer, like a couple of people have been asking for. It was hot enough as it was.
I have a drafted response to that. It is 112 degrees outside right now. Y'all don't know hot.
Yeah. Okay, so next section of responses that's always interesting to look at is, what was the thing that got you to buy a badge for HRPC 18? A lot of people just simply said they wanted to be a part of the con that broke the Vegas curse. And that's awesome. That's why we were all doing it too. So, a lot of people called out the guests of honor. Some people call out the musicians. Some people even called out the vendor hall as being like the reason that they came. That's awesome. It's a little bit of everything. Panel lineup. All my friends were going, so peer pressure. That's fine too. Whatever gets you to buy a badge. A number of my friends were going.
Couple Vegas locals.
That's good. Yeah. You always get some locals, so that's always good. Let's see. Vegas. Vegas.
I found yours. Or I'm not going to call out his name, but I found who it is. I'll message you privately. Thank you very much. That was very nice.
Barcast. Somebody came for the Barcast. I wonder if they were on the Barcast, but a few of the DJs were part of the reason I was going to be there, but the location and proximity to my home also helped immensely. Plus, I wanted to be part of erasing the stigma against the past convention in Vegas on the whole. That's sort of the theme of this entire section, which I think is just awesome. A little bit of everything there. One
very important response I do want to highlight that somebody said is the reason they bought.
Okay.
All capital letters, Vegas.
Yeah, a lot of that. Yep, proper return to the Vegas scene. The fact that it was local. A lot of first-time convention attendees, first PonyCon experience. Several people saying that, so that's awesome.
Excellent. Well, I hope we can do a lot better next year. Make their return even better.
Whole lot of that. a couple, at least one person that says, I was at Las Pegasus, and I also have family lives in town. I'd like to see a PonyCon stay in Vegas. So thanks to you. Anybody who was at Las Pegasus that gave a chance on High Roller, extra thanks to you for believing in us. Yeah, so but that's sort of the theme of that section there. Okay, so now this is always fun. If we were to change one thing for next year, what do you think it should be? Like I said at the start of the call, people wanting it to be a 3-day con, by far the most popular response. A couple people, I think Jeff mentioned earlier, a couple people suggested maybe a change in venue. I'm assuming that these people were, so at least I've got one person here that suggests moving it back to Fremont. I just don't think that's the right venue for us. For having I think that's going, between like a kid-centric con and like an adult con. I think we're pretty good in the middle with where we were this year. I think I'd like to push the needle a little bit more towards kids cons so that we have that kids programming and reason for kids to come. I think moving it back to Fremont is just going way too far that direction. But a couple people wishing that it had been in a gambling hotel. Again, it's always weird from the convention organizer standpoint. You don't want to give people reasons to not be at your convention. So like having it in a casino hotel or having it around, like actually having it like on the strip, there's just too much from an organizer standpoint. I understand from the attendee standpoint, especially if you've been to 100 PonyCons before and you've seen every panel type already and you're planning on going to the strip anyways, having the convention like on Fremont or on the strip probably sounds great. From the organizer's perspective, that's just too much temptation, too close by for people to leave your convention. That's just not what you want. So, then that's one of the reasons why I think our location is just so perfect, because the monorail is right there. Like if you want to go down to the strip, it is just so easy. Just walk across the parking lot and just zip down to the strip. So that's just that's the way I look at it.
Well, yeah, and from the perspective, we want the convention to be enjoyable. We want it to be full because we want to host an event rather than a rendezvous point per se.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. For sure.
Also, Uber.
Yeah, Uber too. Yeah, of course. It's
Uber drivers are psychotic here. I'm just going to say that.
Uber drivers are psychotic everywhere. Yeah, to the one person that put the Epic Gamer panel on the schedule, that was just a failing of communication internally. It was not intended to not be on the schedule. That was just an internal goof, and so yes, of course,
that was all my fault. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, but I did everything I could to like promote it and put it on Twitter and whatnot. And I went in there to a full house, so it did all right. But
yeah, I do have to say, it was honestly the fullest panel I think I saw the entire weekend, which to me is crazy. Why haven't you people come to Cyberfest or Windy City? Darn you! I feel personally offended.
We had a full house with a concert chat. That was really nice.
Yeah, that was pretty full. That's true. So, okay, Jeff, maybe you can address this one. A couple people just across the survey talk about the idea of having party floors or room blocks for parties.
Yes, definitely. That is one thing I do want to bring up with the hotel, because we only ran into, from my perspective, very little noise complaints, but they were still prevalent enough that it was brought up in conversation between myself and the hotel organizers. But I see no problem in talking to them because they know who we are now. They can, we can explain better, this is how we are, this is what we are. We're friendly and harmless, but we like to, be a little bit loud at night. So if they can get us a few specific floors where it's only attendees, and if they want to pair it with the president, well, the issue with the presidential suite is it's on the club. I think it's on the club floor. Let me look.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, it's on the top floor, but it's
that's not the club floor.
Yeah, most hotels in Vegas still have a presidential suite or two, and they have their own floor. That's it. Whereas the Renaissance has the presidential suite when you get up off the elevator, and then they have other suites on that floor as well, which are going to be, blue-haired boomers who don't want to deal with a bunch of crazy kids.
Oh. Actually, the suites were just, that kind of curved glass that was like a 90-degree angle kind of on the front of the hotel. That whole structure running up and down was the suites. But I think if we can combine the suites that are purchased into like one or two floors, so let's say we block out two suites in anticipation of somebody buying it, then we can block out the floors as well, so we won't have the noise complaint problem in the first place. But one thing that really did surprise me was we didn't get a noise complaint for the AV. So props to Larsis and the entire AV team for keeping it together, and also props for the soundproofing. Holy crap.
Yeah. Now, here's what I'll say in terms of having party floors and room parties and stuff like that. I am all for people. Like, obviously, people are going to come to the convention, especially with it being in Vegas and all that. People are going to come. They're going to want to have room parties, and they're going to have a good time. Obviously, that's totally fine. My thing is that my personal opinion, now I'm not, I'm just only one person's opinion, but my personal opinion is that I don't want the con to become a party con, because to me that just invites bad decisions, people making bad decisions. Like, when you get a bunch of people together and you get that whole mob mentality going of like everybody just drinking and partying, and it's in Vegas, so doing other stuff too probably. And it's just you run into a situation where you just get like there's the wisdom of the crowd, well, there's also the stupidity of the crowd. And I just don't want it to get in the position where we're constantly having to deal with dumb people making dumb decisions, because we've provided them this venue, this area where they can do whatever they want without repercussions, or at least that be the outlook on it. So if we do like party floor or like anything like that, I would be watching how the maturity level and the responsibility level of people in that party floor very carefully. And to me, that would absolutely be a privilege that would be taken away if abused. That's how I would look at it.
Yeah, I think I mean, and I hate whataboutisms and comparisons and stuff because we're our own event, but I think that like Everfree's done a really good job with it, because BerryTube always gets their own floor as a party floor, and they bring in more and more kids each year. So whatever they're doing, it works. And
it's true.
I mean, those are the BerryTube guys, and they're totally different from the HCC guys, but they've never had an issue with it. And you just go up onto the floor and all the doors are open, and it's just kind of everybody's real respectful about it.
We've also had a lot more practice at Everfree though, so you got to think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it'll be something to look into, just for maybe we don't want to promote a party floor per se, but I would like to at least get the general bulk of the attendees on, a few particular floors, so we don't run into the situation where maybe there is one offsite party room that's on like the 12th floor and it's filled with a bunch of other pilots and others, because Delta exclusively does use the Renaissance, so we do have a lot of pilots, a lot of people, who have been working probably 14 or 16-hour shifts, so they're exhausted.
Right.
That's the type of clientele.
Yeah. So like, kind of on this topic, here's a comment from the one thing we could change next year. So this person says, I would advise setting up a room block with suites meant for parties, social activities like BabsCon does. By setting up a party floor, the convention would heavily reduce the risk of upsetting non-attendee hotel guests and catching the ire of hotel staff. This in turn would eliminate the risk of noise complaints, room shutdowns, evictions, resulting in happier con-goers. It would also attract more attendees. There's a pretty substantial amount of people who consider con parties a big selling point to HRPC next year, and allow you to be more readily more readily compete with BabsCon. All right, so since this comment mentioned BabsCon, I will mention BabsCon. And BabsCon, to me, now I've never been, so I only have my perception to go off of with exactly the kind of thing that's being talked about here. And it just seems like the BabsCon environment is just not what I want, at least for a con. Again, my personal opinion. It's too much towards the parties thing, and just from what now maybe some of this is overblown, some of this is blown out of proportion or exaggerated, but it just seems like a lot of drama continuously happens at BabsCon. At least that's my impression, like more than any other con, it seems like. And to me, I just can't help but notice the correlation between a con where all this drama happens and a con that has these dedicated spaces for party floors. I just feel like, kind of like I said before, these party floors and dedicated areas can invite and kind of can culture and stew this kind of activity and behavior that results in this drama happening. And that's just, I don't want that in my con. I don't want to have to deal with it. Sorry. And I know a lot of people, you know, there may be people that look for this, but I think there's just as many people that don't want to have to deal with this kind of stuff. And, you know, you know, again, that's just my opinion, my perception. But you know, I'm all for people having a good time, and you know, by all, you know, room parties are fine as long as they are done responsibly and respectfully of the people, the rest of the people in the hotel. So, again, that's just sort of my take on it.
Okay, one good thing that that's a good segue to. We could probably go into the kind of just the perks with the specific badges. And I don't want to obviously go through every single badge and every single thing that they responded to, but I think the general consensus was the top tier through the regular tier sponsors. Most people I scored either perfect, pretty good, or all right. There were a few things where it was a letdown, and we definitely know what they're referring to. We had a couple of internal errors. We had a few issues with the limousine transportation company, that sort of thing. So we definitely understand what went wrong, and we're going to absolutely work harder to make it much better for 2019.
Yep. And I have to say, you know, some of the perks that we had, you know, I think some of the, you know, Jeff. So I know that you mentioned that you know, some of the things that came around that you know that we could have done better on this year were sort of stemmed from, you know, the fact that, you know, you were doing this for the first time, and some other people on staff, you know, may have been doing this for the first time. I imagine now that you've done this, that there are some perks that you probably would not do again, right?
Absolutely. And then there's also a few things that I would like to add in. They would be a really good addition to it, but I don't want to talk about it too much right now because I'd like to converse privately when we start working on the logistics for 2019. But it'll definitely be an improvement for 2019 with regard to the packages, what's all included. But the primary main stuff that was in the different tier packages, basically what separated them from the others, I would like to keep, you know, the focal point on that while just adjusting a few things.
Definitely. Okay, so yeah, let's see.
Someone posted a question. The Dawn package. Yes, the Dawn package will be a thing. However, it's not going to be exactly what you saw on last year's. It will be.
I think all the packages are going to get tweaked, you know, and optimized a bit there. Yeah, there's a whole lot of good suggestions in like the stuff for next year. I could spend like another hour talking about the things in here. So if there's anything that we haven't touched on that you guys wanted to see happen next year, reach out to us directly, and maybe we can talk about those a little bit, you know, on more of a one-on-one basis, because there's just a whole lot of stuff in here, and it's hard to know what the majority is really looking for, other than the things we've already talked about.
I can tell you one good majority. A lot of people do or expressed interest in or desire obtaining a Royal Flush plush. That will be something we'd like to, you know, look into and think about. We had attempted it for this year, but we ran into a couple of timing errors with our production company, so we only stuck with the sponsor perk plushies. And at the same time, that put a heavy deal of emphasis and specialty on the Royal Flush plushes that were actually made. It kind of reminded me of the episode with Twilight and Rarity making the princess dress, with Sassy Saddles wanting to make, you know, 50 million copies of it, but she soon realized that if you make a lot of copies of something that's really special, it devalues it. So we want to try and, you know, balance the two. Like, on one hand, we want everyone to be happy, but on the other hand, we want the plush of Royal Flush to be, you know, special, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and those particular plushies, just in case, Jeff kind of touched on this, but just sort of emphasize the point. A lot of people say like, oh, they wish they'd been able to buy those plushies. The plushies that you saw were handmade by Kazi, one of the fandom's plush artisans. And
Oh, I'll get the big one in the back.
Jeff, if we, did he step away?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's up?
If we had sold those a la carte, what do you suppose would have been the charge for the 2 plushie sizes?
Just because of the cost basis and the fact that we would have to order the minimum. I mean, I anticipate we'd have a couple hundred left over. We would probably
I mean like the specific ones that Kazi made. If we had sold those a la carte, what do you think we would charge for those?
I don't really want to say, because at the same time, I don't want to say what we had to pay for them.
No, like what would her retail price on those be, do you figure? Not our cost, obviously.
Well, they were pretty close to retail. But I think for the 12-inch, they were retail close to 300, and the large ones were close to 500 a piece.
Yeah, so all the people that are saying like that you wish that you had been able to buy one of those plush, understand those were handmade by a plush artist, not mass produced in a Chinese factory, and that's probably what they would have cost. So having something more affordable that's mass produced, that people will be able to purchase next year is definitely part of it, is definitely the goal. But just understand, what my point in explaining this is why we didn't have any available for sale, because they were handmade and she could not have made any more. So I'm just trying to make you feel better about not being able to buy one because of how much they would have cost you. All right. So yeah, generally speaking, a lot of the feedback on sponsor perks and everything, I think we've dealt with and conversed with the sponsors directly. But generally speaking, it seems like people were relatively happy with the sponsor packages. It seems like registration, just the hiccups in registration was kind of like the main complaint, if there was one. But yeah, no, aside from that. Okay, so then, so once again, if you are watching the live stream, make sure that you put any questions and feedback that you have that you would like us to address to in the YouTube chat. We are keeping an eye on that, and Skriluso will be calling out anything that any questions that we have, so that Jeff and I or whoever else is on the call can respond to them. And then also, if any.
I was going to say, I'll periodically check the Twitter. I'll just keep my eye on the Discord and Twitter chat in case anyone posts. Let me see.
We do actually have a couple questions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What are your hopes for a number?
Okay. Take 5 minutes. Take 5.
You turn 35 and you start falling apart.
Breathe. Oh, happy birthday, right?
Yeah. For what are your hopes for a number on guests of honor for next year?
All of them is our hope.
Give me the budget. I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the brakes on that, because I'm going to now say that the Bank of Jeffrey will be closed for this con, because I want this con to be self-sustaining, not Jeffrey funded.
So it's way too early to even conceptualize about the people that we'd like to have next year. If for no other reason, then we don't even know who's available. Like, it's a lot of them don't make plans on their schedules, with the guests of artists and the agents and everything. It seems to be, at least from my, Drew, how would you say, like, how far typically do people plan in advance for like actually signing up for conventions?
Yes, like some guests I could get now for next year, but we don't really know what our plan is, so let's not do that yet.
Right.
We also need dates for the venue. The moment we have dates, we can start getting guests, honestly.
But
dates,
okay.
I want to say conservatively a couple weeks out, because it boils down to just a quick email and some back and forth hardballing between each other, and we get a price and then we go for it.
Yeah.
I get you.
Follow-up question was to Royal Flush. Would possibly different outfits for different tiers be considered, so that if you really, really like Royal Flush, but you really want to have that ballroom gown?
Are we talking about on the plushies, or are we talking about on like badge art?
On the
plushies.
On the whoa. I'm a married
What's that?
spud, good sir. I'm a married spud. No,
I'm just going to put the brakes on this discussion and say that'll be up to whoever the art department head is, art director, as well as the planning committee for the sponsors.
We're definitely not looking to reuse a bunch of art from this year. So yeah, having next year's art, maybe having her outfit or something like that be different.
I think they're talking about the actual plushes themselves, having
like having different like dress up, like different outfits there.
For the different tiers.
I think that would fall into some production issues because I mean, like with stuff like that, you have to have like minimums, and so like being able to order all those different outfits for the different plushes, I think would be might be.
Let's put it to year 3 maybe.
Yeah, we'll look into it. It'll depend on cost and how much that costs, because if like whatever the high tier is, if there's only like 10 of the top tier and their minimum is like ordering like 100 of that outfit or whatever, then logistically that probably might not make much sense. But it's an interesting idea. Well, we can look into that.
There was another question before you get. There was another question for specifically for vendors, and I could give you an answer, Coco Pen, sort of. The question is views on vendors selling NSFW art if it's in a safe manner that ensures only those interested would see it and kids won't. As a vendor head and a vendor himself, personally, I have no problem with NSFW. However, I think you have to deal with putting stuff in bags, making sure that it's so that you really don't want the kids to see it. You really don't want to cause problems. Or the guests, even the guests of honor. They often really don't want to see it either. So it comes into a logistical aspect.
But I think was that not our policy this year? Because that's usually what we do for Ciderfest in Windy City. It's basically you have it under the table and you have to show an ID to see it.
That is correct.
And basically, like my thing is that. Like as long as everyone understands like that this is the procedure and like this is the policy, then everything's fine. But if like one parent comes to me and says my kid saw this stuff, then that shuts it down immediately. Then that one vendor who screwed up has ruined it for everyone, and that hasn't happened yet. So everything's been fine so far.
And it's not always a vendor that does it. Like there was an incident at Everfree this year where attendee just brought it from home and pulled it right out in front of Ingrid, and it's like, hold on a minute.
Yeah, well, there's not a ton you can do about that kind of thing except for
vendor thing, because someone bringing it from home.
So it's you'll run into fringe situations like that in outlying situations. But for the most part, I think that's the page. As far as going back to the question, I think that's the page a lot of the vendors were on. I know that there was some stuff posted like that was more visible. Like actually up on display at this con, there was a little more into the PG-13 realm than I usually have at Ciderfest in Windy City, but also we didn't have that many kids there, so I kind of said, well, fine. It's just a matter of balancing the environment and the feel for the convention, and just getting to that place where you're not going to have any more complaints from one way than the other. And I think we had that this year, so I think we'll probably kind of stay where we are in that kind of thing. Jeff, would you agree there?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that ultimately, as long as we kind of just emphasize the fact, like I know it's Vegas, so some people are going to be under the impression that, it's more lax restrictions. I just don't want that to be the prevailing theme. I would prefer it to be, like this is still a professional, well, as professional as we could be, convention that's geared toward all ages, but we want to also allow people to offer their art services or art pieces in, different ways.
Yeah.
It's a fine line.
Yeah, for sure. Screwy, any other pending questions?
Did we lose him?
Screwless, you're muted.
Yep. So there's no quick button. I hate this. It's like I wish there was an Alt Shift. None that I see thus far. There was one. 1 second. That I think it was geared towards something else. 1 second. So sorry. Lance asked, did anyone get pics of the room sign art? But I think that was just to the general chat.
The banners, like outside of the rooms.
My guess, yes. If you want to upload,
I have the original files. I don't know what he would be asking for. But,
I think they're referring to the banners specifically, and yeah, we still have. We would like to reuse some of them, but I think we're probably gonna have new art for a couple things as well.
Yeah, a couple things will be used. And one thing that I will definitely say, and this is, I think, a comment that I missed when I was going through things in the first place, is that we'll definitely have more directional banners, like pointing to some of like the rooms that are like when you came up the stairs or came out of the elevator that were to like the right, it wasn't obvious that things were that direction. So some more waypoint banners or directional banners with arrows pointing to where things are. I think we'll have next time. But yeah,
I think you're good.
Okay, cool. All right. So just real quick, to anyone that's watching, if you ran a panel and would like to know what the feedback was in aggregate on your panel, or if there are any specific comments, obviously I'll anonymously, but let me know, and I can pull out like email me or hit me up on just whatever. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, Discord, and I will let you know what just the general consensus was on your panel, just so you know if you'd like to know what that was. So yeah, scrolling past all the individual panel responses, in terms of people's opinions of the guests of honor, people really, it seemed like people really liked the guests that we had. M.A. Larson constantly is, for somebody who isn't even involved with the show anymore, is one of our most popular guests. Which
he was the one messing with the robots. Jesus.
I mean, if you met the man, you understand why. He's just an angel in a scruffy man's body.
Someone is asking, would you guys be open to opening the staff applications for artists and similar people soon? Plus, we need to make the robots the guests of honor.
Well, as soon as we have dates nailed down, we'll probably start opening applications for those sorts of things. But right now there wouldn't be anything for anybody to do, so there's not a lot of sense in bringing on staff, especially like we don't want to ask people to commit to a convention when they don't even know when it's going to be. So as soon as we have dates figured out and have officially announced, then we can start to open up applications for those things.
So it's okay. Have patience. I will fire you shortly.
There was there was another question I saw in there that was about kids stuff. I know we already went over it. We're going to try and do better for next.
Videography in the main hall. I think he said that he thinks he recorded it locally, but he had to get the gentleman lives in Australia, so he had to get home and get all his stuff unpacked and get into that and see if he. I just don't think if he recalls if he was only streaming or if he was also recording locally. So it's gonna. I'm still waiting to find that out. So
he was definitely recording locally on many things.
Oh, okay. Cool. One of the things I like to look on.
Welcome, Larsis. Welcome, Larsis.
No.
Oh, hi, Larsis. It took me a second. I was just like, I'm looking at the survey responses. I'm just like, who was that deep voiced gentleman that just spoke? But yeah, hi. Larsis is our AV head, so everybody say hi, Larsis.
Hi, I'm Larsis, and I've been at wrong meeting.
One of the things I like looking at on the responses is for people who we help to introduce you, like especially on like the community guest side and on the musician side. And so like on each of the community guests and musicians, I asked, are you glad they came? No, wait, wrong one. Were you a fan? Were you already a fan? Or if you weren't a fan, but now you are, now that you've seen them? That second one in particular is always really interesting to me. And it's what I can say is that a couple of the community guests that we had that's had a very high percentage of people that basically said, I didn't know who they were before the con, but now I do, and I'm a fan of them. Maddie Moselle, who played our Royal Flush, she gained a lot of new fans at High Roller. Fiora the Tank Girl, she gained a lot of new followers. Spike Firemane, which I think he is probably one of the people that has been in the fandom the longest, yet has been under the radar on a lot of stuff, just because he's the woodcarver guy. Just in case you guys don't immediately recognize the name, he's the gentleman that does all those wood carvings and donates them to charity auctions, and has raised tons and tons of money just off of that alone. So I'm really happy to see that he's getting recognition. Barcast gained a lot of fans at High Roller. And Assassin Monkey is another one that was up there, and the artist who does that, like that super like photorealistic style. He also gained a lot of new fans there, which is pretty cool. And everybody, like pretty much everybody, gained fans, but those are some of the ones that had a higher percentage than others. And same on the musician side of things. Let's see. Jupiter Maroon gained a lot of fans. Pearl Grey gained a lot of fans. Pakajawa gained some. Drop Team Epic gained some. Scootaloose is one of the higher percentages of people that gained a lot of fans, except for percentage-wise, the one that gained more fans than anyone else. This musician, I don't remember. I think I might know him. DJ Killscreen, I think is how you pronounce that. Gained a lot of people. If I ever meet him, I'll have to tell him good job.
You don't want to meet him. He's just horrible people. Don't.
Japanese anime trash or something.
Do have a question. Will there? When is the ETA for uploading, or if you're going to be uploading the concert footage?
If it exists, ASAP. But I don't want to put a time frame on it any more than that, just because it'll be up to getting the footage from Australia, which could be time consuming in and of itself. And so I don't want to put a time frame on it just because I want to be wrong and lead you astray. So ASAP is the best I can put on that. I'll put whoever's asking, if you're in the Discord, I'll put in the Discord as soon as I can find out the status of that. We'll update it there for sure. Generally speaking, comments on the guest of honor selection, all really positive. Here's a good one. These were some of the nicest people I've had the pleasure of talking with, and they all had some immense talent, and watching them perform on stage was absolutely wonderful. I really liked Pegasus, P-A-G-A-S, capital Y-S as well.
Yep, that's Pegasus.
Yeah, system admin.
Is this like a musician that showed up unannounced, or?
Yeah. He was when Vinyltastic wasn't going to be able to make it. He was filling his slot.
Oh, okay. Right. So we only put people that we had announced as community guest musicians on the survey. That's why Pegasus wasn't on there. But glad to hear some positive feedback on that as well. Let's see. Just all really positive stuff. Same question as far as why Seventh Element wasn't on the list. He was a late addition that wasn't officially, well, I guess he was officially announced at the last minute. I pulled off of the list on the website, but so he was announced but not added to the website. So you're right, Seventh Element should have been on there. It's because he wasn't added to the website that he wasn't. That was an oversight on my part. I put the survey together, so my bad there.
To be fair, it was kind of one of those situations where this was like literally as down to the wire last minute as you could possibly do. We were trying to reorganize and strategize with musicians probably the morning of.
We don't admit that. We say it was all a big surprise.
That's the same thing. We had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, see, it was such a big surprise. Even we thought it was a surprise.
Exactly. But
there's also
I think
another thing. Sorry, Jeff. Just real quick. One of the other things music-wise I saw in there was people asking about live acts. Jeff, do you want to talk about why we didn't have any live bands? Because there is a very good reason for it.
Yeah, as far as live entertainment goes in the city of Las Vegas, they are the Department of Taxation, the regulators, the Gaming Control Board, basically the big top three that pretty much regulate everything that is Vegas that you see, is very stingy as far as live acts. And it would boil down to the fact that we would actually have to commission the live guest musicians through some sort of government entity or regulatory entity, and that would be very cost prohibitive as well as just a logistical nightmare. because it's just another example of government sticking their nose in everything. But I'm not going to go into that. But long of the short, it was a lot of red tape we would have had to go through, and DJs kind of skirted under the radar as far as the Nevada Department of Taxation and the Game and Control Board was concerned. So
to sum it up, Jeff, if we had live performing acts, it would have just cost us more money. Is that the gist of it?
It would have cost more money, and it would have been honestly so logistically prohibitive. I don't know if some of the musicians would have appreciated the same hoops that they would have to jump through as well as us.
Okay.
So just convenience for the musician as well as just cost prohibition.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm personally a huge fan of the performing musicians of the fandom, and so I'll certainly be looking to see. I know we looked into it this year, but just for a first year, we just tried to we limited the amount of trouble we caused ourselves. So we basically just early on basically said we're just going to do this year. But so next year, now that we have a lot of things under control, we can mentally afford to add new complications. That'll be something I'd like to look into, because having performing musicians is something that I would definitely like to have.
Hey Jeff, we are not getting 12 subwoofers next year.
Dang, sorry, this is a public thing.
Oh, you can say damn, jeez.
Well, darn.
All right. So, any pending questions, Screwless, before we move on?
Yeah. Oh, just a response to that. I think we are good with our subwoofer setup because we actually did cause damage to the ballroom.
Rain, boom. Rain, boom. Rain, boom.
From what I understand, we actually derailed a train in the vendor hall.
He's not wrong.
Poor Sky.
Sorry, Sky. Sorry, not sorry. Wow, that's okay. I did not know that. That's impressive. I think that happened while I was out on the monocrawl, which I'll take as a segue to talk about the monocrawl, because that's one of the first special events we asked for specific feedback on.
I wanted to go to that. Jeez, I couldn't go.
Yeah, poor you. Yeah, please. Next year, one of the things we definitely hope to improve on is reducing the number of kidney stones in con chairs. That is definitely something what we hope to do better on. I can safely report, though, for anyone who hasn't caught this news, that Jeff is now the proud father of 3 small buildups of whatever the hell makes up a kidney stone. Jeff, have you named them?
Calcium.
Bob, Jill, and Sammy.
And salmon, like the fish?
No, Sammy. Sammy.
Sammy. Is that short for Samantha or
Samuel?
Samuel. Okay. I'm disturbed you had an answer prepared for that question. But yeah, monocrawl. So generally speaking, of the people that responded, about half of them just simply weren't interested. Cool. 36.8% of people were interested but couldn't get a ticket because it sold out. And then of the people that responded that did go, only 2 said that it was just okay, and the rest of the people said that it was great. Nobody said that they went and wouldn't do it again. So that's definitely good to see. General responses on that were a lot of people couldn't go just because they weren't at the con yet, or they were not 21. Totally fair.
Maybe we can do something like, or this was kind of an idea I have brewing back. Maybe we can do an 18+ one where we don't necessarily do bar crawls, but we just do like a hotel crawl.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think okay. So I think I kind of mentioned this before, but one of the things that I think would help the bleed of attendees out into the strip is having more organized events. So I almost wonder if having a specific organized outing, maybe even like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, so we can take people down, do something for like a couple hours, and then bring them back so that they've gotten their taste, but then they're not completely absent for the entirety of the concert or whatever else. I mean, of course, people can still go on their... What's that?
Like, I was gonna say, just take them down long enough to lose enough money that they don't want to go back the rest of the week.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's how I afforded to come out here.
Yeah. But but that's yeah. So having maybe an organized taste of the strip every night in some fashion or another, so we can take people down, let them do a little bit of a thing, and then bring them back. Of course, people can still go on their own if they wanted to, but maybe that would help. Help the people who are having all the musicians, and then anyone having late night panels, just sort of help them out with their attendance at those various events, just for that, what I'll just call attendance bleed from people that left the convention to go to the strip. So something to consider maybe.
Yeah, just another thing we could add into that is maybe a really short trip. We have the most of you are familiar with the Welcome to Las Vegas sign. Most people don't know you can actually drive down to it, because there's a large parking lot in front of it, and you can actually go take pictures with it. So that could be just something where we sell tickets for $5, $10, and we just go rent, one of those really large party buses, run down there, take some pictures, run back. That's an easy hour right there.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, not a bad idea. It's something to look into for sure. Other monocrawl comments. I
forgot who it was that suggested that to me, but thank you. No, it's a good idea. We'll definitely look into it.
Yeah.
Really stood out. Most people seem to enjoy it, and then other people just said that they wish they could have gone.
Yeah. Another one of the things I think we could have been a little bit more communicative about the details. Like, here's a response that kind of explains what I'm talking about. There were several people who didn't know about the bar crawl until it was too late, and they were told different things about getting a ticket. One was told that she could still buy a ticket, and but it would be a full price. Another was told there were no tickets left. It was conflicting information and very hard to get a straight answer even several hours before the monocrawl started. Also, monocrawl staff failed to reply to emails and messages in a timely manner. Some people were panicking because they didn't have all the information they needed, but nobody was getting back to them on answering their questions. But emailing convention staff after Thursday morning is pretty much always going to be a crapshoot any way you look at it, unless you have a very large convention staff and you have people that can afford to just pay attention to email. I am barely able to look at my phone just for text messages, let alone responding to emails. So had I known that this was an issue, I definitely would have suggested different attempts at communication. But putting that aside, there's our PR staff kind of pre-con. We didn't have anyone that was just dedicated to PR. We had basically everyone that touched the social media accounts. Was Jeff, who of course had other things to do, myself, who had other things to do, and then it was Ludi, who had other things to do, and Vinyl also was helping out with social media, who had other things to do. We didn't have anyone just dedicated to social media, which also comes back to what I was saying before about having a limited amount of staff and just multiple people wearing multiple hats. And so another communication, just general communication failing that I think will definitely, that I know I will definitely try and do better on next year.
But this year I do want to commend the staff, because we had a very multi-talented staff with everybody, taking on what the equivalent would be of 2 or 3 positions. That was a lot of work.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like I'm picking it, I'm cherry picking some of the things that people complained about, but on the whole, I mean, like I think for a first time convention, I may be picking out some of the negative things here, but overall the feedback on the convention was extraordinarily positive.
Oh, yeah.
I saw people saying online that it was one of the most drama-free conventions that they had ever been to. I think Photo Anon posted that particular comment.
Good, let's keep it that way, please.
Seriously.
That's a good turnaround from the last pony convention in Vegas I attended.
Yeah. Seriously.
HRPC 2019, the quest for more money.
Yeah, because
is that every convention?
Not more money, just the quest for any money would be great.
Yeah.
No, just generally speaking though, I mean, like with the staff that we had to work with, so many people, like, and I did my best to really put the spotlight on them as much as possible at like opening and closing ceremonies, especially people like Ludi wore multiple hats between like programming director and social media and like the musician liaison and like musician acquisitions. I guess you could basically say like Ludi probably wore more hats than anyone side at this entire convention, and so he deserves really a lot of praise for what he did. Drew, he's he helped pull together a lot of the guest relation stuff, so he deserves a lot of praise there. Just all the department heads and all the the directors, just it really was like an orchestra of chaos that came together to like make something that was, I'm going to say it. The weekend, people have asked me a dozen times, just like, oh, how was High Roller? How was Vegas? And my response has been every single time, and I don't mean this in a negative way, it was a lot better than I expected it was going to be. And I mean that the best possible way, just because like,
you're telling me, holy crap.
just with the way that everyone came together, like like on staff and just with the guests and everything, to just kind of just the way it ended up fusing and melding together to make just overall a really solid weekend. Obvious issues to improve on for next year, but I mean, overall,
Charlie?
It was great. I thought, yes.
No offense to your conventions, but we haven't barreled down the road flat out the 26-foot truck before.
Wait, what?
Okay, I'll just preemptively talk about this story. Okay, so you know how we were setting up Thursday. This was before I had my kidney stone episode. That was a fun night, but we had Ray actually had to ditch the sandbags he was bringing. And for those of you who don't know, Ray is with Kelsma Audio. They were the providers of all the AV equipment, and they helped us put on an absolutely killer show. But because of the fact that Ray helped us out so much, he had to actually ditch the sandbags that were basically put his truck overweight and made him illegal. So
sandbags for everyone's knowledge are what we use at the base of the truss and the pipe and drape everything, so it doesn't fall over.
Yeah, and so when it got down to that, we had to run over to Home Depot, we had to run to Home Depot, and the only truck we had available that could carry that much weight comfortably, because I'm not going to throw like 300 pounds of sand in my ass, that would be ridiculous. But we had the 26-foot Penske, and we talked to Ray, and he just pretty much said, yeah, just go over to Home Depot and get it. The closest Home Depot boiled down to driving towards the airport and going into that little pocket of civilization between the two runways kind of over here. And it boiled down to the fact that Larsus was screaming his head off while I just pretty much had my foot pinned to the floor.
Hey, I wasn't screaming. I was laughing my ass off. You were there, and I have the video to prove that was the case.
Oh, yeah. So also, word of advice, we did almost give a physics lesson that night, because a Prius versus a 26-foot truck, generally the truck's going to win. So that was that night.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so Charlie, we need to get a semi for Cider Fest then, don't we?
Tesla semi, I'll bring mine.
Cool.
Okie dokie then. I will we will look into that. Definitely, probably not.
Okay.
No, God, no. So moving on to the next special event, the Guest Founder Poker Party was probably one of the most popular things that we had the entire weekend, aside from the gamer panel. But that's just because it was a ticketed event. I am
really expensive. Oh, I'd be extra.
Well, yes, but putting that aside, people had a great time, and just it was one of those things where just we had the right people there between the the guests that chose to play and participate to the dealers that we had. Waffles was apparently like a card magician, and so I'm glad that he was able to participate. And it was just one of those things where I'm glad that event came together as well as it did.
We ended up actually getting all 5 guests into that room.
Yeah, no, that's great. It was more than we anticipated, so that was awesome.
I do want to give a quick shout out also for the guest founder panel. Spike Firemain, for those of you who didn't know, he is one of our High Roller sponsors. We actually had gotten so many people that wanted to play poker at once, he offered to be a dealer for a second poker game that was happening right next to the first poker game. So that allowed everybody to, get a chance to play poker at some point while also enjoying basically the lounge atmosphere we created. So I definitely want to give a shout out to him too for stepping in and helping out with that as well.
Yep. Okay, so then we can move on to some of the more general feedbacks on some of the various things. So that was almost was almost a sentence. So some of the general questions we asked is, how was your experience registering? And 62% of people gave it a 5, and that's awesome. I imagine that some of the lower scores that you're seeing here, 25% gave it a 4, and then 10% and 2% gave it a 3 and a 2 respectively. Were probably with us at pre-reg on Thursday night. I know that's when we were just really getting our legs on that and just and getting things figured out. But it's really glad to see that is as high as it is on the 5s there. Next, we asked, how was our con staff and security staff? 75.8% of people gave it a 5 out of 5, and that's awesome. It's good to know that our staff did a good job there. And then the numbers of 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s were all very low. I will be looking into the surveys of the people that gave a 2 and a 1 there, the 4 of you, to try and see if I can figure out exactly what the complaints were and see if I can address them. But overall, it seems like people were very happy with our staff, so that's very good to see. Next up, we asked, how was your experience with the Renaissance and staff? And again, very high, 76.8% of people gave it a 5 out of 5.
They like them better than us.
Yeah, that's true. So good job, Renaissance. And then 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s were respectively approximately 12%, 6, 3, and 2%. And the responses there. So, but I mean, again, whenever you're getting this many people together in any situation, there's always going to be some outstanding, outlier situations. And so, we'll look into seeing what the particular issues were there that caused those low scores to come up. Hopefully, they give us their reasons for those. But on the whole, seems like the Renaissance did a great job, so that's great. Then we asked vendor hall, and so vendor hall is always one of those things. Every one of these surveys that I have ever done, you get just as many people, and I really do mean it's like a 50-50 split almost every time, where you get 50, approximately half of the people say like the vendor hall was great. I found all the things I wanted to get, like everything was awesome. And then you get people that say the vendor hall had really low variety, or you didn't have enough vendors, or just various other complaints. And so the vendor hall definitely seems to be one of those spots where it's that phrase where you say it's hard to please everyone really comes into play. But again, seeing here that at least 70% of people gave it either a 4 or 5 out of 5, and so I think that's about as good as any convention really honestly ever gets. Just because of people's particular taste in the particular things that they're looking for. If they don't find that, yeah, good job, Screwy. It's just one of those things that I assume that was Screwy. I'm not looking at the screen right now, but just
you are correct, sir.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Weirdo. But yeah, no, pretty good. And then we asked, what do you think of our con merch offerings this year? And again, kind of the same thing. I think we'll definitely look into having more merch options next year, but even still having for 47, 53, 83% of people either gave it a 4 or a 5 out of 5. It's pretty good, and so definitely not a lot to complain about there. To the people who gave it to the 13, 14, 16 people that gave it either a 3 or a 2 or a 1, I'm sorry you didn't find what it was you were looking for. But hopefully you told us in the text area below these questions what it was specifically that you wish that we had, so we can possibly look into those options. We then asked, how was our website and social media coverage of the con? Again, very high on the 5s. 54.7% gave us a 5. And then 28% gave us a 4, 13.7 gave us a 3, and then a couple of 1s and 2s. With not having a dedicated website and social media staff, I would say that these scores are fair. And so, but definitely areas for improving on next year. And then finally, our con book. What did you think of our con book? For those who were lucky to get one, and I'll get to that after this, but 63%, 60 out of 95 responders gave us a 5 out of 5. And so for the people who did get a con book, it seems that you really liked it, and so that's great. And then trickling down 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s there. In terms of the number of con books, it is from what's that?
Those of you who got a con book, hold on to them, and in a couple years, eBay.
Yeah.
But no, I think we could boil it down to the fact that when we actually were planning and placing the orders for the convention book, immediately after that, and I'm not lying, we had 120 attendee registrations.
Yeah.
So that was the big one.
Yeah, and honestly, what it comes down to is that I know from an attendee perspective, this might not make this probably doesn't make a lot of sense to hear, but from a con organizer's perspective, you really do want to run out of con books, and the reason why I say that is because con books are stupid expensive. You know,
heavy too. Jesus.
Well, yes, but like it's for like whenever a con finishes, if you have more than a box of con books left over, like it's painful, because that's probably a couple $100 that you are now realizing you did not have to spend. And so when we were looking at the time where we placed the order for the con books, like Jeff said, we had a surge of last minute pre-registrations and then a decent amount of at the door registrations. That's through our expectations out of whack on that particular aspect. We ordered enough con books so that we were expecting to run out Saturday afternoon, or maybe Saturday morning, but Saturday afternoon, not Friday morning like we ended up doing. So while yes, I'm glad we didn't have any left over and wasted, we did not want to run out quite that early. So apologies to those of you who really wanted a con book and did not get one. You know what I can do, Jeff, with your permission, is I can make the PDF available. Not that it's going to really do a lot of good, but at the very least, for those who would like to see what the con book looked like, you can download a copy. Jeff, if you're okay with that, I can do that.
Sure, I'm fine.
Okay. All right, so I'll do that. So I'll post that. I'll link to that. It'll be like a Google Drive link. I'll post that in the Discord and on the Twitter and Facebook, so that if you wanted, you can. I would suggest just downloading a copy just in case something happens. But if you wanted, you can get it from there. And honestly, in retrospect, probably should have done that when we ran out of books. Should have made like a link, an easy link accessible, so people could have downloaded the copies to their phone. But yeah, but nonetheless, going forward, hopefully we will not run out going forward. But yeah, so that's sort of like the general responses for things. And then at the last section of the survey, before we just get into the demographics, we just simply ask, anything else that you want to comment on. And not really a whole lot of stuff in here that we haven't already gone over. Oops, I scrolled too far here. So just kind of like skimming through here. So yeah, you've got, honestly, I really like the more risque items in the merch hall. It was fun to see more adult items around to buy. And then you've got people saying like, I wish you had more kids events available. And like those two things are like in direct opposition of each other, basically. Being more kid friendly versus being more adult friendly. And so it's just a matter of finding that balance. Somebody wanted a con plush, talked about that. Somebody wanted con books, talked about that. People seem to really like Royal Flush to Con OC, so that's definitely a good thing. Okay, so for the person that's asking about Guidebook, using Guidebook, the app, Guidebook is stupid expensive. And especially they've revamped their pricing like in the last year to make it even worse, in my opinion, for smaller events. It basically costs the event $5 for every person that downloads it. And so that's just, it's just not cost effective. And so I don't think we'll be looking at Guidebook anytime soon. Oh yeah. So one person is mentioning that they wish that that the con book cover, and I presume somewhere else in here someone mentions the welcome banner had a higher quality version of the art. That was basically an oversight on my part. I think basically what happened there is I had a version of the artwork that I assume was higher quality. I haven't gone back to look at it, but there was something off about it. Oh, the signatures, I think it was Twisted Sketch. Their signature was not in the right spot. Like it was, they didn't account for a bleed, basically an area of the book that was expected to be cut off so that the print could go all the way to the edge. And if it was like in any direction, up, left, down, or right, you wouldn't see like a border. So, but their signature was all the way in the corner. And so it would have been cut off on the book. And so I asked them for a version where the signature was more centered, which they then emailed to me. And I did not look at it close enough. And I think what probably happened there is that Gmail like compressed it or did something weird to it to make the image lower quality. And I just didn't look at it to check it. And so that was just an oversight on my part. And then that was the same image that I used for the big welcome banner at the top of the stairs there, which was the same thing. Like I never zoomed in on the image to see like, oh, I'm make sure this is a high resolution photo. I just didn't check because I was at
Charlie.
Yes.
I have a better, more revised answer for you on that. Just
Okay.
repeat after me. That wasn't a real problem. It was an artistic decision so that the text would be highlighted and the photo would have a bokeh effect.
Yeah, that's not true.
I never said it was true. I said it was more revised.
Larsis, Larsis, I appreciate your effort and your creativity, but that is simply not true.
One good point I did want to bring up is we have two that are or two comments that I'd like to emphasize because they do show kind of the situation that we have to handle as organizers as far as the vendor hall. We had one that commented that it was a lot of pastime vendors and that sort of thing, so that the little vendors felt like they were kind of overwhelmed, I want to say. But at the same time, we have another comment that says it felt like there weren't enough vendors and there weren't enough variety. It's a very difficult balancing act, and I'm sure, Screw, you can attest to this. We want to make sure that the vendors are able to make enough money, but we also have the big names that kind of draw them.
Yes.
Yep, that's something that a lot of attendees may not think about, is that the more vendors you have at a con, the less money each vendor is likely to make as a result, because there's more places for people to spread their money around. Of course, taking into account with the fact that this is, again, in Vegas, like there's a lot more other places where people might have wanted to spend their money, like dumping it into slot machines or poker tables or whatever. So,
if you're careful, you get more money back.
Well, yeah, probably not though. You definitely don't want to oversaturate your vendor hall with vendors, because then that just hurts each vendor individually on a whole, because they make less money probably. Let's see. So here's there's a couple very long descriptive responses that I'd kind of like to go over, because I think they touch on the whole on a lot of really good points. So first, we'll start off with a positive one. So I scrolled away from it. Excuse me. Trying to get back. Okay, so here's an overly positive, a longer positive that we got. The convention books having a laminated cover was an absolutely brilliant touch. They normally would fall apart and that I have to trash them due to consistently taking it out and looking at it, but these ones held up so nicely, so great on that. Media coverage of the convention was the best you could do, being a newer convention. I heard more about it through word of mouth, so I think this is a good sign that someone was doing the job well, so great. Con merch was wonderful. I love the t-shirt design. This purple is my favorite color. The glassware was an absolute steal and super amazing for a convention like this. The poker chips were cute. It was a nice small touch. It's a nice small merch buy, and the art was a cute touch, but I personally would have wanted postcards instead. Interesting. I've never had postcards before. That's an interesting idea. I haven't seen conventions offer postcards of the con, like Wish You Were Here kinds of postcard art, and I think that would be wonderful to add to the next set if you were looking for something that might catch the eye more. I might steal that idea for Cider Fest. That's an interesting idea. Vendor hall was full of dockies. Yes, I would agree with that. While I'm not against them, it is just a higher ticket item, and then what I have available to spend, it makes it harder for me to support more of the other artists that were at the convention. I'm glad there were such a variety of artists there, however, and that many of them had commissions open for the convention. I really enjoy supporting artists, as I know what it takes to get to a convention and try to sell your wares. Renaissance staff was very friendly and welcoming, and they seemed excited to have us there. From my experience with them, it was wonderful to see this. Plus the Elvis robot, and don't forget about Priscilla, there was also Priscilla, was amazingly adorable. I appreciated that they made the parking free as well. It really helped my party out. It was just a really cool thing for them to do overall. The con security staff were informative and followed the instructions laid out very well, though there seemed to be some confusion about the ponies at dawn table and the registration line on Thursday night. And the registration line had a bumpy start, and that was most likely due to not having set up in the room before and having a smaller room than perhaps expected to work with. Registration line staff was very helpful and competent in executing their duties. The only things that took up time were buying things at the con store due to the PayPal programs not working or having hiccups during the weekend. Yeah, all just first-year bumps that I think we have worked through at this point. But Yeah, I think that's sort of the positive comment that the positive comments. I think that encapsulates a lot of them.
There is one negative that I do want to kind of bring up because it is a little bit of an elephant in the room. I just kind of wanted to clear the air on that.
Okay.
Somebody had pointed out that they felt the con was too targeted towards a few specifics, as well as, excuse me, those who could afford the sponsorship badges. Anyone else who didn't fall into these categories got left out in the cold. And I understand targeting the core at this point in the fandom, but there's a point where targeting it exclusively can cause issues. We want to make sure that we can offer all of the general attendees as much as we can for a convention. But at the same time, you have to understand that from a convention organizer standpoint, we do have to make the sponsors feel special because they are funding what is the vast majority of the entire convention. So there are some areas we could definitely do to improve to make sure that everybody feels welcome. But at the same time, we do have to acknowledge that the sponsors, particularly for 2018, were very important to the convention simply because the fact that they were the vast majority of the funding source for the convention, not to mention the fact that they were pretty much taking a leap of faith in us, so to speak.
Yeah, it's the same thing for Ciderfest and Winnie too. It's the sponsors, like the convention literally, like High Roller is no different. I think a lot of the conventions, the pony conventions specifically, are this way. These conventions simply could not happen without the sponsors. Like if the sponsors all basically said that we're not going to spend this money on you anymore, like I don't think I could do Ciderfest or Winnie City anymore, at least not in anything close to resembling their, what they currently are. And so while we do try and definitely take the sponsors into very high consideration as a result of that, I definitely agree they should not be the only consideration. And that all attendees and the vendors and the community guests and the musicians and staff and everybody need to be thought about as well there. So so yes, I can see what you're saying. I can see where somebody could be coming from the standpoint of that we were paying too much attention, and that it was catered only for people with a lot of money or for the sponsors or whatever. And I think that may just be in relation to the overall size of the con, just because the proportion of sponsors to regular attendees may have been a little bit higher out towards the sponsor direction than other cons. And so just, with the regular spending money from regular attendee purchases, we may have, we may have been able to do more in other areas had we had those. Again, though, staffing is also another thing. I think that we would have been able to have more events on, in different directions if we had the staff to run them. But yeah, otherwise, what Jeff said is completely true. There is, let's see. So there's a negative response here that I kind of want to touch on a little bit. No complaints about the registration or the hotel itself, as the staff was wonderful, registration was quick, and the hotel staff were fantastic. I saw people in security shirts, but never actually saw security working except at the fandom drama panel, and even then they stopped checking IDs halfway through and made it no attempts to stop people. And I think that there's more, but I'm gonna address these like one by one as they come up. I think a lot of our security staff were basically working open to close, and so they had to. Again, comes back to just the overall size of the staff we had to work with, and just people splitting themselves between multiple areas. I think there were a lot of security staff. Actually, Aaron, do you want to comment on this directly? Do you have any response to this?
Including myself and the second in command that I had for security, we had 10 people on the security team. And at any given time, I had maybe 6 of them out, giving 2 time off at any given time. I had to give people time off. So the security staff went to where they were needed.
Yeah, and so while I think we would have definitely liked to have had people on, like badging at 18 plus panels and events and things like that the entire time, it just resources were just spread too thin, I think is what it comes down to.
Pretty much, and you can tell when somebody's 18. I gave my team the direction, kind of the if they don't look 18, card them rule, kind of like an honor system, because it's 18 plus. Unless there's alcohol involved, why is the panel 18 plus? Are they just swearing? That kind of
for content is generally the reason. They're going to be talking about adult topics or displaying adult content. And so but yeah.
Well, I talked with a lot of the panel runners beforehand, or had the people on the team did it, to find out exactly why it was listed as 18 plus.
Okay, I see. I see. So then this person goes on to say, and I'm gathering from their response that they were a vendor. They go on to say the vendor hall was never guarded by security. Anyone could have walked in. I can absolutely say that is not the case. It may just simply be that at the times that you looked, maybe they had wandered off, or was like between shift change, but there were many times where I saw security staff on the door into the vendor hall. So I'm not sure. I can absolutely.
Because at one point, didn't we open up the vendor hall to general population?
We did experiment with that, actually. Yeah, we opened it up to public, because who are we to deny the vendors money? If someone from the outside wanted to come in and buy stuff, their money's perfectly good. So
yeah. So it's something that we were experimenting with, and we'll be looking at. But there were definitely times where security staff was on the door badging people, and so but this person goes on to say that that they say that their concern is that this puts a massive liability on the convention if theft occurred, since HRPC took no action to protect the vendors or their property. There were definitely people on the security staff on the door badging at various points. And there should be, even if we're allowing it, even if we're experimenting with allowing anyone into the hall so the vendors can make more sales, which is something that I talked about with a group of people on a couple different nights, actually, in out in the pool area. Was beside the point. There should still be somebody on the door, and so again, it was never an intentional decision. I don't think. It was just a matter of, if there wasn't somebody on the door at the times that you looked, it was just because of resources being spread thin. But I know also Screw Loose, the very first vendor, the vendor hall lead, was actually also attempting to pay attention to the door there. That's why he was positioned in that first slot there. And so if it appeared that nobody was checking badges, that was not the case for sure.
For all intents and purposes, they might not have been wearing their security shirt, which is entirely possible. I did have a few on the staff that didn't wear the shirt. Either we didn't have the size for them, or they just didn't have any more shirts.
Okay, all right, so good to know. The vendor hall was poorly advertised, poorly placed, poorly guarded, and the comic book had no mention of vendor hours. Nobody had any idea what was going on when it came to schedules. More baffling is that the vendor hall went 2 hours past closing ceremonies. So, okay, a couple of things here. In terms of it being poorly advertised, I'm not, it was listed on the website. We had all the vendors listed. I know Jeff put a lot of time into listing all the vendors on the site and put the hall map there. So I know it was on the website. The map and the listing of the vendors was in the book. Yes, it was an oversight that the hours were not listed, but that's an easy question to ask anyone on staff when the vendor hall closes. Not to say that excuses it not being there, but it's also not, the biggest the biggest sin in the world. As far as the vendor hall going 2 hours past closing ceremonies, that's because it wasn't closing ceremonies, because it wasn't the last thing at the con. It was just sort of a thank you before the concert got started. So kind of, I mean, like,
we called it
to whoever filled out. To whoever filled out the survey, I don't want to invalidate your opinions or your feelings. It just seems like you have some mistaken perceptions on some things here, and I just kind of want to address them in case anyone else is feeling it. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say that, because again, I don't want to invalidate their stance in the matter. I just kind of want to explain it for this person, and as well as anyone who might be feeling the same way. So it's don't look at it as the vendor hall going past closing ceremonies, because it wasn't closing ceremonies. It was just here's our last chance to say thank you before we start to set up for the concert, which is the last thing that's happening. We couldn't have closing ceremonies at midnight. So overall, the con felt, this person continues, overall the con felt it was like catered almost entirely to HCC, Horse Con Chat, which is another, I think, 4chan thing, musicians and people with lots of money. I kind of addressed that earlier, just in terms of the in terms of the the focus on like, I don't want it to become like an MLP 4chan con, or I don't want it to become a party con. And so I do feel what you are saying there, and I don't want that to become the case. So I do connect with you on that. If you weren't I'm just quoting this person. If you weren't a drinky, shit poster, a musician, or a sponsor badge holder, you're pretty much a second thought. Jeff, I take it this is what you were referring to earlier. And
yeah, I believe so. Well, yeah. There was another comment as well citing the cost.
So Killscreen and / Lily mentioned that HEC attendance was estimated to be 500 to 600. That is not correct. I'm not sure when he made that estimate, but the actual attendance, I think, was, what was it, like 425, I think we said?
Yeah, there was basically when it was the only time I had ever mentioned attendance numbers was closer to the convention when I knew what almost our final pre-reg numbers were. And I was like, I said I wouldn't be surprised if we hit 500, but I'm not betting on it.
Okay. All right. So this particular vendor was disappointed by the actual turnout and lost money on the con. Obviously, that's not what we want. So I'm sorry that you had a bad, whoever filled this out. Maybe you identified yourself on the survey. Like I say before, I'm just looking at the aggregate responses, so I'm not looking at this text block in relation to anything else that you filled out on the rest of the survey. I will be looking to see if I can reach out to you directly to talk about some of these things, but. Those who could afford the response, but I think this is very similar to the previous response. I wonder if the same person filled it out twice. Actually, it looks like the same person filled this out twice. Okay. Most of the problems that did arise came from being the first year of the convention. I'm sure following years will have a lot of the problems, fix a lot of problems we had. And there, I think, is a good place to end on. I think that's sort of where everything kind of fell at this point. A lot of the things that we admit that we can do better on in the future are things that we, kind of knew and saw happening at the time that we can improve on, that everyone has just sort of, reinforced and re-identified as things that that you also, attendees also identified could be done better. Yeah, overall, like I showed in the various graphs, overall, it seems like people had a really good time. And we'll be going through each of these responses one by one just to pick out things, because there could be some, I'm sure there are some very good suggestions and responses buried amongst all the different things here. But sorry, I just caught a mention of patented brony odor with the trademark symbol. Shower people, please.
Remember 621.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that pretty much puts a cap on it. Screwless, are there any outstanding questions?
Is there currently an email that people can send in suggestions for next year?
Jeff, what email should they use for that?
Just go ahead and send it to admin@highrollerponycon.com. Basically the one. Well, I'll put it up on the new website page that we have.
Yep.
Just for reference. We'll go ahead and check that a little more often. I know we were, that's another thing we want to work on for next year is we'll be hopefully getting a proper dedicated email server. So we're not using like half personal emails, half like business email. So we want to get it all in one.
Correct. Like bronycon.org. There somebody makes a suggests that made the comment that yeah, if it seemed like it was catered to horse con people or 4chan, maybe just a lot of 4chaners showed up for a potential crash and burn. Maybe they wanted to be like ground zero to watch it roast marshmallows on it.
Well,
I suppose that's a possibility.
I'm not. I haven't actually even typed in 4chan in my browser in fucking 6 years. Sorry, curse words. In like 6 years. No, but I know a lot of those people. They were showing up in full support. They did not want us to crash and burn. They absolutely wanted us to do well. They're not the trolley people everyone thinks. I think that sometimes people just aren't comfortable with how outward they are and how they act, and it makes people feel a little awkward. I totally get that. But in my experience, and I watched them very closely because Jeff and Charlie can attest, I was their biggest champion at this, saying, let them come, let them do their thing. And I, other than a few things, I didn't see a huge problem with it.
Where did they get the microwave?
Wait, there was a microwave involved? What?
Where did they get the microwave?
What microwave?
Don't worry about it. Where did they get the microwave?
They brought it.
Well, okay, maybe I should know about this.
They brought a microwave. They actually owned a mic. Like, what do you? I don't know. Walmart, Best Buy. What
Okay, I was just making sure that they didn't heist it from the hotel.
Ludi,
That's all.
Ludi, you're autobotting pretty bad right now.
Okay, sorry. Well, anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Somebody also asked.
Nope. You're just music at this point. Maybe disconnect or reconnect.
Somebody. Last question I see is: any ideas on the date and time frame for next year?
Next year?
Maybe it's me.
Charlie, are you having technical issues?
I believe he is.
Maybe I'm the one having the issue.
Yeah, because all of us are fine.
Yeah, he's been freezing for me every now and then.
Here, I'm going to type in. Okay, so continue on from that, I think Charlie, while he addresses some of the technical issues, we'll probably just go ahead and wrap it up with there. We appreciate all the feedback that everybody gave us. It was definitely informative. We have a lot to work on, and we are definitely going to work on it. It's all the problems that we had and the concerns that we are going to be addressing are very, like Charlie said, we don't want to devalue your position and your feedback, but at the same time, a lot of these are issues that are very small, but they are more than easily correctable, and we will definitely address them for 2019. And Charlie, if you have your sound back, I'll go ahead and let you close out as well.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, you know, this journey of High Roller PonyCon 2018 is something that it's
going to take 3 chapters of my autobiography, I'm telling you.
It's something that, I mean, unless you were on staff, like from early on, you saw some of this, especially dealing with like our whole blissful exodus is what I'll call it from the D, and you know, getting moved over to the Renaissance. I mean, like, it has just been quite the journey, and it's one that I'm just incredibly thankful to have been able to be a part of.
Thankfully, you're going to be part of it next year too. Sorry, bud.
It's one at a time. So, but
one
yeah,
of us.
I've, at least from my perspective, even just being a part of this, I have been through like panicking, like, oh my God, this is going to be an absolute dumpster fire disaster, to this is actually going to be a really good weekend. Like, I have been through all over that spectrum, and several times just back and forth, but I absolutely ended up on just like, I am very pleasantly and thrilledly, is that a word? It is now. Surprised with just how well everything ended up going. And then like we said, obvious things we can improve on for next time. Some really great suggestions in the feedback, like Jeff said. You know, just overall, I just, you know, I like we said at closing ceremonies, and everybody and everything, just thanks to everybody that ended up making it happen. Thanks to everybody that contributed to the survey. I mean, it has just been a ride, and you know, for everybody that has been a part of it, just thanks for being a part of it. I guess is really all I can think of to say at this point. But yeah, no. Anyone else want to say anything before we conclude this thing?
I'll say something, but I want to save it for last. I'll let some of you guys go first.
Okay.
Hey Jeff, how about 8 subwoofers?
We'll see. Again, we just have to keep the damage to under $5,000 this time.
Yeah. Let's see. I guess we'll go down the line. Aaron, any final comments before we sign off?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Drew, anything from your side?
No, I'm just glad people enjoyed the guests.
Okay. Just real quick, last call for comments or questions in the YouTube chat. If you have anything that you want to ask or say that you would like us to respond to, now is the time to say or ask it. If we missed it, if you asked something before and we missed it, please ask again, because we did not mean to miss it. But Lars says, aside from the number of subwoofers we're going to have, anything you'd like to throw into the air?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Screwy, what about you?
Call me Ishmael.
I'm not going to do that. Ludi, anything on your side?
No, just thanks everybody who came out and supported the con and gave us a chance. It means a lot to me, so, and all of us. But yeah, definitely, you guys are the reason this worked.
Okay. Love Remedy, stop asking for AV for the gamer panel. Fine, we'll do it. Just stop asking. I'm just looking over the recent chat comments to see if there's anything else. You're welcome for the stream. Anybody who got value out of the stream, anybody who learned anything or just enjoyed it, thank you for watching and for hanging out with us. And I'm hoping it was worth your time.
Somebody wants to say their own airline for a sponsored airline for HRPC for next year.
Hey, I already told you guys my goldfish is not buying Boeing or United Airlines or Delta. It's considering Allegiant.
Ew.
Ugh.
No. We can't consider this. If it bought Allegiant, it could only improve it.
Love Remedy in the chat room. You're asking for gamer panel stats. If you mean responses on the feedback survey, like I said, I will respond to those in private. Message me directly about that. But let's see. Question: the survey itself. If you are rating yourself, please have an option for self. Oh, because this is from Spike. He was also a community guest. I mean, whatever, Spike. I mean, like that's it's we'll figure it out. It's fine. Question: can you guys keep the sponsor badge purchases open later? I was prepared to obtain a sponsor badge, but you guys closed them off just the day after I was able to purchase one. That sucked. The answer is it will depend on what's in the badges. We need time to get things manufactured, to place orders for perks and things like that. And so typically,
oof, that was fun.
Yeah, because especially anything involving a flight. I mean, like I would say that generally speaking, those, like as soon as you get within 6 weeks, like maybe even 4 weeks, especially within like 4 weeks, those flight costs are going to skyrocket. And so typically speaking, so the answer is, I don't recall off the top of my head how many weeks out we closed sponsor badges this year, but 4 to 6 weeks out is pretty common, and doing it any sooner than that is just going to make the things in the badge, especially things that are customized for that person like flights, just cost that much more. So it kind of depends. Obviously, we want to keep them open as late as possible because we like sponsors, we like having them, and we like your money. So we definitely don't want to turn any away that want to be sponsors, but logistically there needs to be a balance there. So no hosting stuff for other fandoms. I'm not sure what that's referencing here. Just looking at it once more. Last call for comments or questions.
I want to do my final comment when you're ready.
Yeah. Please improve the website design. Hate to say this, but the website is hard to read in various places. Yeah. The website will be better next year for sure.
Yes. We'll avoid the whole like big fat buttons theme. I think we're just going to go with more simplified text, just so it's more easy to read.
PonyCons should only have pony, or else what's the point? Okay, so it looks like we're just devolving into chatter at this point. So I think I will call the end of this. So Jeff, if you want to go ahead and give your, all managers do please stay on the call after I go off air, just so we can have a follow-up conversation. But Jeff, go ahead and close this bad boy out. Thanks to everybody for watching.
And I want to give a big shout out. Thanks to all the attendees that showed up. Thank you to everyone that submitted, excuse me, your feedback. It's been invaluable, and we will take everything that we can into consideration. A big thank you to all the HRPC staff and managers, and especially Charlie, who probably put up with me the most, and I don't know how you did it, but you did. And it is with great
beer. Beer is the answer.
that I tell you all, you are now fired. Staff application in a couple weeks.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.